Can I pause you for a second?
Sure.
Stephen, what the hell is Donnie Darko about? Hello. Today on Everything Cinematography, we have the great honor of Mr. Stephen Poster, ASC, being our guest. Now, Mr. Poster's career has bridged quite the gap in cinematography, going from the dreamlike looks from Donnie Darko to the heavily VFX-laden Stuart Little, all the way over to Madonna's Like a Prayer music video. Mr. Poster also was a past president of the International Cinematographers Guild, as well as president of the American Society of Cinematographers. So, along with all of this, Mr. Poster is an incredible mentor and has championed young cinematographers in their careers, of which I happen to be one of those cinematographers. Please welcome Stephen Poster, ASC.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yep, several presidencies and boards and operational politics and in the middle of shooting a lot of movies and commercials.
You know, you're a workhorse, you're amazing, you're a force within the industry. You really are. And you've inspired me throughout my career in many ways. Let's talk about the beginnings.
I started when I was 14 wanting to be a cinematographer because I met a cinematographer in Chicago, and the day I met him I thought he was the coolest human being I've ever met, and I said I want to be him because I was already interested in photography.
Okay. So then what was the journey that led you to your first film?
Well, before the first film was years of documentaries and industrial films and commercials and medical films. I learned to turn down my first job after doing a series of medical films for a director in Chicago, and he called me up and he said, "I got something really exciting. We're going to do a medical film about bed sores."
Wow.
And I said, I think I'm busy.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I actually pulled myself together to turn down a job.
Now, at a certain point, you worked with Michael Mann.
I did a number of commercials with Michael, and Michael also directed a documentary that we traveled around with. It was an industrial documentary with Dr. DeBakey. I got to shoot open heart surgery when it was almost brand new. F. Lee Bailey, who was one of the most evil human beings I'd ever met, and Bill Lear, who was a true inspiration.
Now, what's that like being in surgery with the open heart surgery? I mean, you were actually in the room?
In 5 rooms. He had an operating theater it was a hub, and 5 different operations were going on at the same time. And he would go back and forth, and he challenged me. He said, "No cameraman has ever been able to not bump into me at some point." So,
was this handheld mostly?
Oh yeah.
So you're following him around?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
what camera were you using?
I believe it was an Eclair NPR. So I'm carrying all that iron with a 9.5 to 95, which was a heavy camera, and I had one of Haskell's hand grips that I had ordered and put the zoom controls in that. So I had a zoom motor on it. By the time I got through, it was like 60 pounds.
Yeah, I bet. And how long a day did you shoot? Do you remember?
Not that long, because it was we would shoot and move and shoot and move and shoot and move.
Okay.
So I did other longer days.
Now, somewhere along the way, you started doing second unit.
I did several major second units. Remember, in those days there were 3 unions, 3 camera locals: New York, LA, and Midwest. And because of that, when a company would come into the Midwest, they needed to hire a Chicago cameraman to be kind of a standby, but nobody wanted to call it that, and nobody wanted to work that way. So I got to be second unit director of photography on Close Encounters. I was
Wow.
I did work on Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. I did work for Vilmos on the river and on the border, as well as Close Encounters. So it was a great education.
Tell me about your relationship with Vilmos.
He called me the professor. Why, I don't know, but I kind of gave him some information about filters and polarizers, how to use a polarizer outdoors, and he was wide open to it. He was such a lovely, sweet gentleman that that he wanted to know stuff.
Now, were you shooting plates and things for them for second unit? Or?
Everything. I was shooting. What happened was we were shooting in Mobile, Alabama. Okay, so I was there.
That's the tunnel sequence, right?
That's the whole. That's the landing, the landing strip, the mountain, the road that the cars drove off of, the cop cars drove off.
All of that. Wow.
All on stage. It was the largest set ever built for a motion picture in that time. It was huge, and Doug Trumbull created another 100 feet of stage by opening up the doors and creating scaffolding with a material on it that Dickie Dietz, the key grip, the rigging grip, found that farmers used, and it was called Grifflon.
No way.
Yes.
No way.
Yes, and it was the first real big bounce. But what happened was Dickie and I were walking outside that structure, and the white was out, the black was in. So we're walking by, and the two of us looked at each other and said, "Wow, this light is fabulous," because the sun was hitting it. And so at one point, I almost became the West Coast distributor for motion pictures of Grifflin. And then I said, "What the hell am I doing? I don't want to do that." But Dickie came up with the idea and started putting them on 12 by 12s, and that was the first white bounce of that size that was available.
That's pretty fantastic.
I know. He was an amazing key grip, and by the way, his grandson Noah Dietz is my TA teaching at Art Center, and he's been assisting me and helping me, and I brought him on as an operator on my last feature.
Wow.
So it's a through line, and actually Dickie's daughter was 4 years old at the time, and she played one of the kids in the alien suits coming out of the spaceship. So I met her when she was 4 years old, and as an adult, she was a producer, and I actually worked with her. So I've worked with the whole family.
You know, I read somewhere that Vilmos had said that for the sequence where the ship opens and the light is blasting, that he had pretty much every arc or HMI that was available to him in order to get those light levels. Because back then he had to have been working with, what was it, maybe 200 ISO film, you think?
I would say, I don't even know if it was 200. Was it?
Maybe it was 100, huh?
100, I think.
Would that have been 48 maybe, or?
So what year was that? I think it was 48.
Yeah.
I might be wrong, but
so
hard to remember.
did you see what he was using to blast?
Oh yeah, I was there. I was operated one of the cameras, and as a matter of fact, there's a still photograph of me as one of the returnees coming.
Oh really?
Out. Yeah.
I need to see that still photograph.
It's on the board next to them as the pilots were coming out of the
That's awesome.
spaceship.
That's incredible.
But that was a really important moment in the filming. We had because the ship opened like that, and it mechanically opened. It actually did, and it was this slope with what looked like metal on it. And it was shiny, and up inside that cowling, we had photo floods all over that. Besides the HMIs that were coming out of it, and we were of course using a lot of atmosphere at that point, which was castor oil. So the crew, after a couple of weeks, all had diarrhea. We never use that anymore. It's now non-toxic, but that's what we were. That's what
that would have been the Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind, I think.
Yeah,
so,
right, exactly.
Yeah, so this is fascinating to me now.
But this is where Vilmos almost lost his job.
Well, tell me about that.
Because the film went off to the lab in L.A. and it came back, and the timing of that shot was all wrong. It was shot it was beautifully shot, but the lab made it so bright that you couldn't see anything.
Oh.
And it was a mistake.
Yeah.
And Vilmos almost got fired. And,
we've all had those lab mistakes happen. Yeah. I've had it happen a lot in dailies, when someone is timing my dailies overnight, and in the middle of the night the shift changes and someone else comes in, and suddenly they have a different take on things, and the director and I'll be watching dailies, and what happened, and then there's the phone call and the complaining and all of that. But so they just let it blow completely out then.
They just, it came back to us, and it was unwatchable. And
what did Steven say?
Well, they almost fired Vilmos.
After all of that.
After all of that. And by the way, who got the Oscar?
Yeah. Now you're saying that all of that sequence was done on a stage?
Yeah.
This was in Mobile, Alabama.
Mobile, Alabama.
So was it a warehouse type of what was this place?
It was a dirigible hangar. Right on the water. Mm-hmm. So it was it was huge. It was they built permanents up there for the arcs and for the 10Ks, and the permanents were 90 feet up.
90 feet up.
90 feet up, and before they built a staircase up to it, you had to climb up the outside of a scaffolding, which I made it about 20 feet up, and I said, you know what?
Done.
I'll wait till they build the stairs.
What was, the cabling waterfall for that must have been immense.
It was huge. It was huge because what did we have? I forget the number, but it was somewhere around 40 arcs.
40 arc lights.
Yeah, and we had crew up there.
Operators on them, right?
And the reason we ended up switching to all nights was because it was so hot up there. Remember, it was summer in Mobile, Alabama.
The humidity alone is, stifling.
And it was like 120 degrees up there, and people couldn't work.
Yeah.
So we switched to working all nights.
Right.
Which was a very interesting kind of.
That it does something to your brain when you do night after night after night after night after night of work, and for me it becomes harder and harder to sleep all day, and then I suddenly find myself sleeping 6 hours or 5 hours during the day because there's stuff going on. There's fire trucks, there's noise, and it's a pain in the butt. So,
and Earl Gilbert, who was a famous old gaffer, Earl Gilbert. And Vilmos, Earl was a gaffer on big shows, and this was one of the biggest shows ever.
Yeah.
And he took a look at me and he said, "Kid, if you're going to grow up to be a DP, get up there and learn how to run an arc." So I went up in the perms and spent 3 days learning how to trim and service and strike an arc.
Wow.
Fabulous.
Incredible.
And each operator up there had charge of 2 arcs. So there was a huge crew.
One person for 2 arcs.
One person for 2 arcs.
That's interesting.
And
were they self-trimming type arcs, or did they have
no.
to? They had to actually do it. Huh?
They had to actually do it.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I think, probably our viewers, a lot of them are younger and have never had the opportunity to work with an arc light. So if you could explain about the arc light and about the quality of light, too, which is an important aspect of it.
The quality of light was remarkable from an arc light, especially the big ones, the heavy heads. And it's a burning source, and it's alive. And it's fabulous. There isn't anything that equals it. There are great lights out there, but nothing equals the quality of an arc light. It's alive. It feels like sunlight. They're hard to do, and it's toxic. The smoke had to be ventilated. Of course, on subsequent shows, if I needed to use some atmosphere, sometimes, I mean, we didn't know what toxicity was in those days. There was a gym, I remember, on a movie called The Boy Who Could Fly in Vancouver, and they wouldn't let me bring in some smoke. So I brought in a couple of arcs and burnt them and let that fill the place. Toxic, of course.
Yeah.
But we didn't know that.
That's a genius idea, though.
Yeah.
That's one thing that cinematographers have to do a lot. We have to dodge and weave and navigate our way around the system, because ultimately the system is set up in a way that they want to make a product as cheaply as possible, as quickly as possible, but at the same time they want it to be as good as possible. And that falls squarely on the shoulders of the cinematographer. I mean, as far as the look and the feel and the composition and everything else having to do with the cinematography, it's all on our shoulders. And, I was wondering, maybe you'd discuss a little bit about the way that you approach a film, your initial meetings with the director, and, how you ascertain what that director wants.
It's different every single time. And if you're doing a studio movie, it's even different than everything else. For instance, Donnie Darko, I had been out of town and working in France for almost 7 months on a picture, a French picture that I was the only American. I was then there was some personal stuff going on, and I was only taking commercials. So I was out of the market about 3 years. And I ran into my friend Thomas Newton Siegel at an event, at an ASC event, and I said to him, Thomas, I'm very interested in getting back into features. And I just put it out there, right?
Yeah.
He was then asked to shoot Donnie Darko by the line producer who was a friend of his, who had worked with him. Mm-hmm. He said, I'm getting ready to shoot something else, and I don't have the time, and why don't you call Stephen Poster? Just like that.
Timing.
So there I am. I get the script. I read the script. I fell in love with the script. It was a brilliant script to start with.
Can I pause you for a second?
Sure.
Stephen, what the hell is Donnie Darko about?
Where do we start? Is it time travel, or does he really die? That's a good question, because neither I know nor the director, well, he knows, but he's not talking. And
it's Richard Kelly we're talking about.
Richard Kelly, he was a wonderful, wonderful director. I did all 3 of his movies, and he was just phenomenal to work with. We laughed and had great times all the way through each one of those movies. But in the first meeting, okay, he was, at the time that I met with him, he was still 23 years old, which didn't bother me. If he knew what he was going to do, then I was happy.
That's about the age Orson Welles was when he did Citizen
Right.
Kane. He was 24, yeah.
So I went to this, it was like a dorm house in Venice, and 2 other guys living there, and bottles of peanut butter spilled out. And I mean, it was like the three guys just out of college
Sure.
living together. And I sat down with Richard and with Sean, the producer, and we started talking, and I noticed Richard was pacing back and forth. He was very nervous to have a meeting with me. And at some point I said, Richard, stop a second. I am your director of photography. I'm not a director. I'm here to help you make the movie. I would love to do this movie with you, so let's talk about the movie. And he calmed down, and then he was. It was a very interesting conversation, because I also said to him, Richard, from this point on, let's consider that I'm the same age as you, because I'm old enough to be his grandfather practically. Wow. And he calmed down, and we started talking about the movie. And I said, I want to do this movie, but I want to get a guarantee from you and the producer that you will sit down with me for 3 or 4 or 5 days before we start shooting, and we will privately read the script together and make our notes. And he agreed to it. Sean agreed to it. And so I got a call that afternoon. Yes, we want you to do the movie. So I said, okay, let's start our work. So the first day, we went over to that same house, and it was a little bit like I said, being in a dorm. And Richard, I said to Richard, let's go to my house tomorrow. And we sat at my house, looking out over the pool and the yard and everything. It was very lovely. The cats were there, it was, you know the house, you've been there.
Sure, yeah.
And we spent 4 days together making sure that he could justify everything he wanted to do. I could justify everything I wanted to do. We made notes. We didn't do storyboards. It wasn't the kind of movie that you needed storyboards for. So we just did notes. And there were a couple things that I was able to talk to him about, like, for instance, there's a couple moments in the movie where the camera turns on a panotate, and that he wanted to do that a lot more. And I explained to him, I said, Richard, if we do that, that's going to become a conceit, and it will draw tremendous attention to itself. If you want to do it a couple of times, great. But let's not.
I remember when you called me over to do the bus shot, the back of the bus,
right?
With the panotate.
Yep.
That was I actually love that. I love the movie. Let's be honest. Who doesn't love the movie? But I always get excited when that shot's coming up, because I can say, look, I did that.
Yeah,
There's one thing that I did.
What did we have 5 hands on that or something?
Yeah, it was crazy.
I think
right?
You were doing the.
I was doing the Z-axis.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah.
What an amazing shot. So, how was that film received? Tell me about. Now, I remember you screened it at Warner Brothers. I went to the screening at the studio.
Right.
And it seems like since then it's just been a slow build into a legend.
It was totally. It was released in about 40 theaters, which is nothing.
No, it's nothing.
And bombed, of course, because
Right.
you couldn't make any money at that.
That's right.
And it didn't sell at Sundance, because the Sundance was a murderous year. Nobody bought anything, and that was very difficult. So it took a while for it to come out and become the cult hit that it is to this day.
Oh yeah, bigger than ever.
Oh yeah.
Today. And by the way, thank you for bringing me onto that. That was, a gift, a great gift.
My pleasure.
And a great learning experience, because to that point, I had not shot Panavision cameras with the anamorphic lenses.
Right.
You obviously had plenty of experience with that, even from Close Encounters, right?
Sure, sure.
So there is a look to that film that some special magic that you have put into that movie. I don't know what it is, but there is a certain aesthetic in that movie that's unique to that film, I feel.
Well, a couple things happened. Okay. I got a call. Richard wanted to shoot Anamorphic. I fortunately was very close with the people at Panavision and knew that I could get a deal on it for them. And the executive producer, Hunt Lowry, called me up because I knew him. His brother was a TV director that I had done a couple of Kenny Rogers TV movies on. And he called me up and he said, "Stephen, you can't shoot Anamorphic. We can't afford it. This is a low-budget film. Nobody shoots Anamorphic on a low-budget film." And off the top of my head, I said, "Okay, let me tell you something, Hunt. Things are changed. You know, you're worried about the fact that you need more light to shoot Anamorphic. Well, there's a new film stock that just came out from Kodak that's fabulous. It's an 800 stock. And that will change the need for that much more light." And I said, "Secondly, we're shooting in a practical location. It's anamorphic, it's horizontal. I won't see the ceilings. I can light from the ceilings, and it'll be much faster." And he said, "Okay, you can shoot anamorphic." Total bullshit.
Yeah.
I was totally bullshitting.
Well, you got your point across, and you did the movie, and it is a beautiful film, Steve.
Well, there was
It's gorgeous.
one more moment like that.
Well, tell me.
And first of all, I had never shot 1 foot of that.
The 800, yeah.
Yeah, the 800 stock. So I didn't know what it would do or what it wouldn't do. I happened to be, I shot high speed black and white in my still photography, but never on film. Nobody had shot 800 stock. So I did one quick test of it and shot the movie, and it was perfect for me. It had the texture and the depth in the shadows that I really, really loved. So it was
It's a shame
great,
that film stock went away, isn't it?
Yeah, because everybody was afraid to use it.
Well, as you know, you have inspired me so often. I actually had to leave your shoot 1 week early because I was hired to shoot this movie called Bully.
Right.
And I shot on the 800 stock.
Oh, great.
And I remember I was at Technicolor timing, and Ed Lockman walked in and goes, "What is that stock? What is that? I've been trying to get that look." I can't imagine that they stopped making it because it was beautiful.
It was, and I tried for years to convince them to do 1,000 speed film. They had the technology.
Oh, yeah.
And they wouldn't do it. They kept saying, "No, nobody wants that. Everybody wants a slower film. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it." And boom, out of business.
You know, in addition to your feature work, and we'll get back to some other stuff soon, obviously you've done a ton of commercials and a lot of music videos. One in particular, which has touched practically everyone, your work with Madonna. You want to talk about that and how that occurred and what it was like working on that set?
It was wonderful. Madonna it was before she moved to London and adopted an English accent. And she was like a workhorse. She was always there. She was always ready, on time, made up, ready to move. And she was very much, very enthusiastic about it. We lit it as though, well, I was working with Jim Plannett in those days. I still, by the way, Jim and I still work together.
That's awesome.
We just finished a feature film just before the strike. Jim was my gaffer because I wanted somebody a little older than myself. He's 83, you know.
Wow.
And he's still running up a 12-foot ladder. He was still as enthusiastic about the work as when we first started working
Go
together.
Jim. Wow.
Oh, yeah, he's fabulous. Madonna was a true pro. She was there every shot, every day, on time, ready to go. And it was before she had moved to London and become an English speaker. She sounded like she was from Detroit, and she was just great to work with. We shot for 3 days on that, and what apparently was different, and I didn't even differentiate it, but we lit it like a feature film. And she was beautiful at that time, and it was she really lent herself to being photographed, and it was fun to work with her. But it was 3 days, two days and one night, and of course the night was burning crosses on San Pedro Hills, and we freaked out an awful lot of people with that.
Well, the video itself was fairly controversial, wasn't it?
Yeah. Try shooting commercials in Italy after doing something like that.
Right. I bet, huh?
Oh yeah.
A little blowback.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, is there a commercial in your career that stands out in your memory as something that was really a challenge and something that you had to really stretch your creative?
The greatest stuff was working with Ridley. I've done a number of commercials with him, and it was always, you could see the invention pouring out of him. And Ridley was great to work with if you could keep up with him.
Really?
And that was it. You just had to keep up with him, and he trusted you after that, and was wonderful to work with.
Now, was he the sort of person that you say he trusted you? He would just tell you what he wanted and let you go and create, or does he kind of hold control over the creative as well?
He was more involved with art direction than he was with camera at that time.
Okay.
Of course, now he operates, and it's because he gets bored and he wants to be able to do something while the shot's going on.
Yeah.
But in those days, he didn't operate, and he was just, he would come up with ideas. He would allow us to come up with our own ideas. He would accept an idea. He would do what we call the Ridleygram, and on a little piece of paper, and hand it to you, and that would be the shot. And you could, and you had to prepare the crew, because you could start the day doing that, but you're ending up doing that.
Right.
And you have to be flexible, because he thinks so fast that you really have to keep up with him, and you have to listen. It's creative listening.
Were you friends with Jordan Cronenworth?
I love Jordan Cronenworth. We were, all the time that I knew him, he was pretty ill, and when he shot Blade Runner, my second unit work on Blade Runner was very interesting. I was called in for one night's work, and I got there, and the production manager said to me, 2 other guys have tried this shot, and Ridley's not happy. Go out there. I don't know what to tell you. Go out there and do something. It was the shot of the spinner, the car, Harrison Ford's car, going through the White Tunnel downtown. And they said, we've done this a couple of times. We're not giving you anything. You don't have any lights. You don't have any. Just go out. You can have a water truck. It was about 100 degrees out in those days, and so I went out and I scouted it. I came back and I had the crew and everybody who had a vehicle go to the other side of the tunnel and turn their brights on. Of course, we had control over the traffic, so we shut it down. But and we wet it down, and there was a quality on this white tiled tunnel of swirling lights going around
Where is that tunnel?
3rd Street.
That's the 3rd Street tunnel.
It's the 2nd Street tunnel. 2nd Street tunnel.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not the concrete one. It's the tile one.
Right.
And so we just back far enough so that they were totally out of the shot. I had these lights shining up from the cars, and that gave a kind of a graphic look to it. I also did one other thing that I found out was pretty crucial. I took the camera off the tripod and I put it on a sandbag because the car was very low.
Sure.
I had done enough car commercials to know how to do that
Right.
stuff, right? So the next day, I got a call in the afternoon. Ridley wants you to come in tonight again. Fine. So apparently I had done something that he appreciated. And I came in and we started doing little shots here and there. We ended up doing one whole scene where Joanna Cassidy is in her dressing room, the snake lady.
Sure, yeah.
And I shot that whole scene.
That's amazing.
In that, then we shot her running down the street and the stunt woman going through the window.
Really? That was all your work?
That was, but they actually replaced that years later when he did some more work on the movie.
Okay.
But we did the first version, which was in the movie originally. But Jordan was one of the sweetest human beings I'd ever known, and to his credit, his son is every bit the human being that Jordan was.
Agreed, yeah.
Yeah, he's a terrific guy.
And a great cinematographer.
And a great cinematographer.
Yeah, he really is, yeah.
But Jordy, I came in and I said, Jordan, what would you like me to do? And he said, follow Ridley. He said, do whatever he needs.
Somebody's got to do it, right?
Yeah.
Did you do any of the inserts on that film?
A lot of inserts.
Did you do the origami insert by any chance?
No, I didn't do the origami, but I did little pieces all the way through when what was her character's name? Did the flip and
the stunt,
put her hand in the boiling water.
Yeah.
I did that.
Wow.
And all kinds of things where...
Were you down at the Bradbury building?
No, I didn't do any shooting at the Bradbury building. I did everything on stage.
At Warner Brothers.
At Warner Brothers. And we would finish scenes on other stages while they were setting up 1 or 2 shots a night for their big, the big finale.
Right.
And when when they're on the roof,
Yeah. Now, the rooftop was on stage?
Yeah.
Phenomenal. The magic of motion picture making.
Oh, it was just amazing. Just amazing.
I mean, the roadside and Close Encounters, the rooftop in Blade Runner, these things that, as a viewer, when you watch it and when you're in the story, you would never think that those things were done on stage.
I know. You can't tell.
You cannot tell.
No, absolutely not. And even now when you're seeing 70 millimeter prints, and you can't tell.
No.
No.
It's astonishing. So, so then you get a feature film that I'm assuming has a lot of challenges to it. So that you're blending live action with animation, right?
Stuart Little too.
And tell me about that challenge, because it must have been a challenge.
Well, it was fascinating because I had done some second unit for Stuart Little 1. So
Amazing.
I met the cats in the park when
Yeah.
they're all lined up at night,
Right.
which was done on stage.
Of course.
That whole pond was made on stage. I did that and a couple other pieces, and so the director, Rob Minkoff, knew me, and the producers knew me. One of the production manager was a good friend of mine, Dustin Bernard, and it was one of those situations where I got called in for the second movie, and I had to go through almost 6 weeks of interviews with every level of producer on the lot at Sony. And Gary Martin, who was the head of production, was a wonderful man who said to me, we at one point we were going to head to New York to shoot in the park, and I said, what happens if it starts raining, if the weather's bad? He says, keep shooting, no matter what, keep shooting. He was just, that was him,
Yeah.
So I went through producer after producer after department after department, and finally the final, and the director had already decided that I should shoot it, but I had to go through all these meetings.
Oh, yeah.
And we did the final meeting was with Red Wagon, who was the producing partners with Sony, and it was one of the bungalows on the lot, and I I was sitting there, and they said, somebody, I forget who it was, said, well, what do you want to make this movie look like? And I had not thought about it for a second, although I knew what the first movie looked like. So I sat there for a second, and then I said, the first movie was beautifully shot, just beautifully shot, and it was subdued colors. It was all the troubles of Stuart coming into the family, and it had a mood to it that was tremendous. I said, this movie is 3 years later, and the family is happy, everybody's happy. Let's make it a sunny movie. Right off the top of my head.
Beautiful.
And I saw them looking at each other and said, that's a great idea. Boom, I got the job. And I made the house, the interior of the house on Stuart Little.
Sure.
There are windows on all the sides. I made sun coming in
everywhere, right? Multiple suns.
It was a sunny movie.
I think that a person who hasn't been in the role of cinematographer and who hasn't had to deal with the interesting challenge of actually getting a job and the hoops that you have to jump through in order to get those jobs, wouldn't really understand that it's not like you're going to an interview with HR and then you're into the job. There are all of those levels and all those different producers who want to talk to you and want to question you and want to find out what you're doing. And there have been times in my career where I honestly thought I didn't have a job. And then I'd get a call later. I don't know if they interviewed other people or what had happened in the interim, or if they were just discussing, or maybe they were hiring the production designer. I don't know. But it can be a nail biter. Our business can be a lot of a nail biter,
Oh, let me tell you, I got a call to do a movie for Mel Brooks. Wow. One of the greatest times of my career. I loved Mel from the time I was 12 years old. And to be able to work with him was something that, and what happened was they were prepping the movie and they had a DP, and apparently the DP walked and didn't want to do it. And it was 4 days before the movie started. So I was a weekend, and I got a call from one of the writers who was a friend of mine. And he said, would you be interested in shooting a Mel Brooks movie? I said, yes, of course. And I immediately had a script at the house. I read the script. I called him Monday morning. I said, I definitely want to do this movie. He said, okay, well, come into the studio. So I went in to meet Mel. And there was the producer, Ezra, and Mel and his writer friends, and he started talking to me about, we just want to know what kind of cameraman are you? Are you a complainer? Are you what are you? We just want to know if you're not a prima donna. And I said, Mel, I'm not a prima donna. All right, good. We finished about a half-hour discussion, and he said, I'll call you later. I'll let you know. So Monday afternoon, 4 o'clock, phone rings, And this is before cell phones, by the way. And I picked up the phone and it said, "Hi, it's Mel." No secretary, nothing. And he said, "We want you to come in tomorrow and scout with us so we can see if you're a prima donna or not." I screamed into the phone. I said, "Mel, I'm not a prima donna." So he turned to whoever was in the room. He said, "He's not a prima donna." And that was it. It was a love affair from that point on.
Do you know Mike over at Radiant Images, Mike Mansouri?
Yeah. In fact, he was with us. There's an organization called the Advanced Imaging Society, which I'm on the board of a company that I'm very proud of and excited about, that is a member of the AIS, and we just had this summer AIS retreat, which was in Park City at the St. Regis. It was very nice. And every twice a year we have a 3-day event. No press, no journalists at all, but a group of 50 companies getting together to talk about what's coming and what's new, and it's a wonderful organization. Wow. And so we, the company I'm with is called 6P Color. I don't know if you're familiar with it yet.
We had spoken. We had lunch recently, and you had spoken to me about this, and I'm intrigued and excited to learn more. So,
well, here's what we know. We know that RGB, which every monitor in the world is made up of 3 colors: red, green, and blue. With RGB, you can only see 45% of what the human eye can see in terms of color.
Wow.
You add 1 color, and you're up to 70%. We have 3 colors added, so we have a total of 6 colors in a laser projector that you can now see 95% of the colors the human eye can see. And we got into this because the astronauts that would go up to the space station would take movies out the porthole, and they'd come back and they'd say, "These aren't the colors we saw up there." And so one of our guys came to us through Baylor University and said, "I have an idea." And the idea was, let's add more colors to digital displays. Well, that was about 5 years ago. Now we have a system that is so advanced that you will never have to calibrate a monitor again.
Wow.
Because the calibration comes from the material that's being broadcast.
How do I get this on my DIT's monitor as soon as possible?
I know. You go to your mother's house and the TV is purple, you know?
No, my mom has black and white.
Okay. But this is, we are very excited about this, because not only does the monitor show emotionally different images, because you're seeing colors that you could never see on a monitor before.
Wow.
But it goes all the way back to the beginning, where the material creates a system of calibration. In 1995, I said, what we need to finish digital color is an end-to-end, device-independent color management system. And that's what this is. It's so exciting.
Will you promise me that we can take a road trip in the future with cameras and learn all about this and see and go to your company and
absolutely
experience this? Because I think everybody's, now that they've heard about it, is really going to want to understand it and learn more. So one last thing before we're out of here.
By the way, we're just finishing up this week was SIGGRAPH, and a bunch of companies for gaming are very interested in what we're doing.
I bet they are.
Yeah.
So before we're out of here, one last thing. Talk to me a bit about, you were involved in 60 frames per second type of capture, weren't you? Some sort of hyper-realistic sort of photography?
One of the reasons I got involved with Baylor University was because somewhere in the mid-90s, I knew that digital was coming. and I was proposing that we do brain scan testing to see at that time what was different, if there was anything different between projecting digitally or projecting on film. And I went to Kodak, which, oh, no, we're not interested in that. I went to the Academy, and they said we're not ready for that. And I went to Jim Cameron, and Jim was fascinated by the idea, but he was just getting started designing Avatar, so he wasn't interested in it. So it sort of sat for a while. I had everything lined up. I had a brain scan expert at UCLA, an Italian doctor, Dr. Giacobani, who was very interested in doing some experiments with us, and everybody passed eventually. So I let it drop until my friends at Baylor University said, we'll do it. And we started the experimental work at Baylor University and tested about 250 students with skull cap that had connections.
Electrodes and all, yeah.
We were going to go to do brain scanning, fMRI magnets, and the Texas Veterans Administration was interested in flicker rate. So we switched over, because at that point it was a moot question about the type of projection. We switched over to talking about flicker rate, and 24 frames, 48 frames, and with all the students we tested, we were about to move into brain scanning, and the pandemic hit, and we had to shut it down. And then our chief neurologist passed away. And but we'll get back to that eventually. But that's when we started with 6P, and Baylor University seeded the money to get started, and we got started with it, and we're 5 years on the road, and it works. It really works.
We're going to come take a look.
Yeah.
Lastly, Stephen, you are a mentor to so many people. You have championed so many young cinematographers and filmmakers. What's your inspiration? What is it that inspires you, that makes you want to help people?
It excites me to see the work that's coming out now. It's so much easier to take an iPhone, rig it out, take a small camera, rig it out, shoot something, tell a story. I went last night to Holly Shorts, and I saw 6 shorts that were done by small crews and young people, and it's so exciting to be able to see what's going on with that. We haven't talked at all about AI, but there's a whole, I write a column for British Cinematographer, and my next article is going to talk about AI and how I don't feel in the long run that it's going to take our work. Because I was a finalist judge on the Nickel Fellowship scriptwriting contest for about 10 years. And we would get the top 10 out of 6,000 scripts. And we would get the top 10. And if 2 or 3 of them were good, it was remarkable. It's hard to tell a story. It's even harder to tell a story on film. And so I think that we will use AI as tools. They're wonderful tools within AI, but they're not going to take over from humans. It will be, what do they call the excitement curve, where some new technology comes in, everybody's excited about it, and then it starts to become normalized, and then people stop thinking about it, and then it comes back, and it just evens off to the tools that we need to do certain things. So I'm not worried that we're going to lose our work.
Thank you, Stephen.
My pleasure.
Okay, that's our interview with Stephen Poster, ASC. I think you'll agree with me. He has had an incredibly exciting career. He's a super talent, and as you can tell, one of the nicest people you'll ever meet.
Thank you.
So don't forget to subscribe, to like, and to ring the bell. We need your attendance here to help this channel grow, to show more and more cinematographers, and to get this great content like we have with Mr. Poster. Thank you once again from Everything Cinematography.